তো বন্ধুরা একটা সুন্দর একটা জিনিস দেখাতে চলছি, চলো দেখো। ভিক্টোরিয়া লাইটিংটা শুধু দেখো।
Dal and rice in some dim past, but it's dim sums now. Elephant rides have given way to flyovers, and how? Things are changing, yet not changing, in Kolkata city. From my spot on this dome, there's so much I can see. All those tales I'll tell you now. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Once it was Patachitra, now they are making memes. My age is 3 of 200 with 1,000 themes. But though the girl's a decent sort, who knows what she'll say or not. So I thought I'd come myself, we'll make a perfect team.
Behold this character, ladies and gentlemen. He used to wander around the spot where all of you are sitting now.
It's a long way from Jurassic Park to Park Street. If that's where you want to begin, it'll take a 52-episode serial to get to mobile phones. I suggest you start with the familiar black and white.
How about this then, sir? A car speeds out of 38/2 Elgin Road on the night of January 16, 1941 and drives straight into the Bengali soul.
No, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose was already a resident of Kolkata. Don't forget, he became the mayor in 1930. As Congress president, he captured the soul of India as well. But yes, hoodwinking the British to make that grand escape, 3 or 4 different disguises, that was a pure thriller. On top of which, he's quite literally immortal. Kolkata hasn't had another superhero like him.
Indeed. Perhaps you would care to tell me then who Kolkata's greatest villain is?
In that case, I'm going to name someone who has no name.
No name. Meaning?
Over 6 months in 1989, an unknown person murdered 13 homeless people sleeping on the streets at night. The media named him, or her, the Stone Man.
Imagine starting with something so morbid. If you ask me, I think the greatest villain is Amitabh Bachchan.
Amitabh Bachchan? Why?
Isn't it obvious, sir? He worked in Kolkata, he acted on stage in Kolkata, but when it comes to films, he chose to go away to Mumbai. Why? Couldn't he have joined Bangla films instead? He'd have made such a romantic hero.
By that logic, even Cliff Richard spent his childhood in Kolkata. Or in Howrah. He was such a wonderful singer, wasn't he? Had he stayed back, he could have been the one to start Jeevan Mukhi Khan instead of Shubham Chatterjee.
Oh, but wait! Wasn't Pele in Kolkata too? And Lionel Messi? He too, right?
Look, I'm warning you. Don't you make fun of football.
The daring young men of Mohan Bagan Club defeated the British team East Yorkshire Regiment 2-1 in the IFA Shield final. Just imagine! The country is ruled by the British, and here's a team composed entirely of Indians beating a British team. 1911 shines brightly in Kolkata's history.
Really? But the Indian capital was taken away to Delhi that same year, wasn't it? I was the capital for 139 years before that. The so-called single most important city of British India.
Oh, but that's It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's a matter of pride, in fact. The British just couldn't take the heat of the freedom movement in Kolkata anymore. So they decided to break Bengal into two halves in 1905. Lord Curzon was so rattled, he wrote in a letter that steps must be taken to dethrone Calcutta from its place as the center of successful intrigue. Don't you remember? It was here that the Nationalist Indian Association was founded under Surendranath Banerjee's leadership. The All India National Conference was set up here too, which gave birth to the Congress. No wonder the British used to call Surendranath Surendranath. And they failed. They couldn't even partition Bengal as they had planned because of all the protests.
Yes, that is why they shifted the capital 6 years later in a fit of rage.
But you know what this proves? That you're a pulsating city, a living city, a city that raises its voice against what's wrong.
Right. Which would one day be mockingly called the city of processions, and even a dying city.
Never mind. People call you City of Joy too, don't they? And isn't it true that in the British era, you are known as the second city of the empire? Your place was just after London's.
All that was only for money. Tax collections and jute sales alone yielded millions of rupees for them.
I don't understand you, sir. If Kolkata is criticized, you seem the angriest man on the planet. But when it's praised, you're the first to say nasty things. I think all you want is an argument.
Arguing is in my blood. Do you know why the first censorship laws in India were made? Well, let me tell you. When Girish Ghosh set up the National Theatre in this very city in 1872, his first production was Dinobandhu Mitro's Neelbandhu. 3 years later, the group was touring the entire country. The play was being staged in Lucknow that evening. There was a scene in which Indian peasants began to beat up the brutal indigo plantation owner with good reason, of course. Do you know what happened then? The British soldiers and the audience went on a rampage on the stage, destroying everything. The very next year, when the Prince of Wales visited Kolkata, the group promptly staged a satire about the grand welcome he was accorded, followed by another one about the police commissioner. That was it. It was time for the dramatic performance act. The censor's sword.
If you're sensible, you'll be censored, my dear sir.
Look at James Hinckley. He published India's first newspaper from this very city, the Bengal Gazette, in 1870. Do you know, he even printed articles mercilessly criticizing the activities of Lady Hastings, just like all your little magazines nowadays, which denounce the establishment constantly.
These protests, this venting of anger, this mocking of the authorities, all of this must be boiling in your belly all the time. No wonder the people of Kolkata have such bad neighbors.
There's nothing wrong with our liberals or with our cantilevers. Howrah Bridge is a cantilever bridge, isn't it? It's been there since 1943, in perfect condition.
I have to agree there. Thousands of cars, buses, trucks have been driving across it every single day, but not a dent anywhere. And I can never get over the fact that this is a bridge without a single screw.
That explains why those who have a screw loose often climb to the top of the Howrah Bridge. But my God, can you imagine the view?
Oh, please. Are you seriously asking me? Haven't I been balancing here on top of Victoria Memorial for almost 100 years now? Have you any idea the things I can see? Couples in love, people up to no good, experimental art in the Academy of Fine Arts, all the money being blown up at the race course. And over on the other side, those babus in suits impersonating Englishmen. You want to teach me views and news? I know you inside out, Kolkata Babu.
Not only do you know me, I'm certain you've been infected by me too. I mean, look at you. Sometimes you spin madly up there when it gets gusty. Other times you're an old lady with gout rooted to the spot. Why, even this building you're so proud of is sometimes dismissed as a mere copy of the Taj Mahal. And wait, wasn't it blacked out with cow dung so that the Japanese couldn't bomb it? Cow dung.
There's nothing to laugh at. It's not like your face hasn't been blackened with shame either. Where was all your outrage when thousands of people were dying of starvation on your streets during that same Second World War? People would stand over them bravely to go to work and to meet their friends. And home they would put on the gramophone to drown the loud cries begging for scraps.
Well, I admit it. Many things that ought to have been done were not done. But I will have you know, it's also true that free kitchens were opened in every neighborhood of Calcutta. Besides, the famine was a creation of the government, of politicians and bureaucrats. Winston Churchill cannot evade responsibility for the death of so many people. Do you know what he said about them? The starvation of anyhow underfed Bengalis is less serious than that of sturdy Greeks. How could he? Don't forget either that Norman, Bijan Bhattacharya's brilliant play about the famine, was staged in this very city.
Well, yes, I'll give you that. Leftist artists created the Indian People's Theatre Association, or IPTA as everyone called it, just a year earlier in 1942. I cannot even begin to count the number of jewels it produced in Kolkata. Navanna was just one of them. So many other memorable songs, plays, films, Utpal Datto and Jyotirindranath Maitro, Devobrata Vishwas and Sholir Chaudhary. All of them were dazzling diamonds from the Ipta mines, while Mrinal Sen was its spiritual disciple. So inspiring, using art as a weapon to transform society, to galvanize thousands of people with excellence and passion. It was like a chariot leading a magical revolution, traveling tirelessly.
The famine of 76, known as Chiattore Mononto, which took place about 170 years before the one of 1943, was man-made too. That one was also created by the British, who were cruelly squeezing people for taxes and sowing opium and indigo in rice fields. Then too, millions of helpless people perished right here in my arms. What could I have done? I only watched in silence. If only there had been an IPTA then.
You are a strange one, sir. Sometimes you were wide awake, and then at other times you seemed fast asleep. Which of these two states were you in when the 19th century Babus were squandering their riches on the weddings of their pet cats, when they were bathing in rose water? Were you half asleep? Were you dozing?
আমারে ফ্রড করে প্রাণে কৃষ্ণ কোথায় গেলি আমারে ফ্রড করে প্রাণে কৃষ্ণ কোথায় গেলি I am sorry, very sorry, I am sorry, very sorry,
So what do you know of it? I had so much fun. Here are these people oiling themselves profusely and then riding off in a 4-horse carriage to bathe in the river. What reckless glamour. And look, if the Babus didn't go overboard, where would the commercials of the Baiji's dance have been, huh? Or for that matter, the schools and colleges they started? Even my most beautifully illuminated festival, the Durga Puja, would not have come into being.
Durga Puja would not have happened? Why not, sir?
Obviously, you don't know that it was Babu Nobu Krishna Dev of Shubhavaja who donated large sums of money to set up madrasas, to build roads, to have musicians brought in from all over the country for elaborate concerts. He not only participated in the conspiracy against Sirajuddaula in the Battle of Plassey, but also organized a magnificent Durga Puja to commemorate the victory. This was the event which put the Durga Puja so prominently on our calendars.
Are you telling me that the man who started the idea of the big fat Durga Puja was the one who wanted to hand Bengal over to the British?
Of course, Bengal would not have fallen into British hands had Sirajuddaula not attacked me with a huge army in 1756. If he had not pounded the East India Company's forces into submission, the British wouldn't have dared declare war on the Nawab.
I feel they would still have declared war. Just that the proper nouns would have been different. They're not a race to give up without taking control. The wheels began to turn as soon as the company's agent, Job Chanak, moored his boat here on August 24th, 1690 amidst torrential rain. And your history began to take shape.
What you said is wrong on not one but two counts. Firstly, Kobi Konkon Mukundaram had written about me long before Chanak came into the picture. In fact, I was present even earlier in Vipradash Mikilai's Monoshamongol verses of 1495. Shabul Rai Chaudhury's family were the zamindars of Calcutta well before the advent of the British. So, my history does not begin there. Secondly, can you say things necessarily to return for the worse with Chanak's arrival? No, you cannot. Ram Mohan Roy put an end to the practice of sati, but would he have succeeded without the assistance of Lord Bentinck? Would Michael Madhusudhan Dotto have changed the direction of Bengali poetry had he not read Milton? Would Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay have written the first novel in Bangla if he had not been familiar with Walter Scott? Would Isha Chandra Vidyasagar have been able to introduce widow remarriage without the support of the British?
What kind of nonsense is this? May I remind you of some scenes from your own history? How can you forget that thousands of people lined your streets to shower martyr Khudiram Boshu's dead body with flowers? Or that Binoy, Badul and Dinesh killed themselves after assassinating a tyrannical British officer in Writers' Building? Why, one of your most renowned barristers, Chittaranjan Das, used to have his clothes laundered in Paris, but the same person burnt all his western wear and began to dress in khadi. The man he defended successfully in the Alipur bomb case was none other than the poet of patriotism, Aurobindo Ghosh. For heaven's sake, sir, you are the city where the revolutionary organization Anushilon Shomiti was born.
ভারতবাসী একবার বিদায় দেওয়া ঘুরে আসি একবার বিদায় দেওয়া ঘুরে আসি
But of course, after all, the monument was erected in 1828 in memory of Commander David Artillery to commemorate the East India Company's victory in two battles, wasn't it? But just imagine, its name was actually changed to Shahid Minar in 1969. when it was taken.
এই না, এখন দিস না, এখন দিস না, এটা হয়ে যাক তারপর দিস। এই পুরো পুরো ভিডিওটা আসলে করতে পারবো না।
Don't have to be so angry, though. I was only wondering.
You know, this is armchair Pandit. What if this? What if that? What if lions and tigers had prowled the streets of Kolkata?
That's not exactly speculation. The Bengal tiger is famous. And he did, in fact, live in Calcutta. He took charge of Calcutta University in 1907, 50 years after it was established in 1857. And he transformed it completely. He is none other than Sir Ashutosh Mukhopadhyay.
And what of the lion?
The lion. We also call him the Shingho, don't we? So, what about Kali Prashanna Sen or Kali Prashanna Shingho, who not only translated the Mahabharata, but also wrote Uttam Pachar Raksha about me?
Right. And rhinos? What about them?
Oh, the rhinos. They are the ones whose skins could not be penetrated by the teachings of Kolkata's great men. They abused Ram Mohan Roy. And as for Vidyashankar, they made up satirical songs about him and sang them everywhere, which he tolerated, as it happens.
Personally, I think these are the precise things that demonstrate how far ahead of the times these great men were. Vivekananda had to hear that he was no sage, for he visited the land of Christians and ate meat. And yet, it was he who made India proud with his speech in Chicago, right? His Guru Ramakrishna was even told he was illiterate. But he attracted the best minds with his natural wisdom and deep knowledge of religion. It was he who said, Joto mot, toto pot. There are as many methods as there are viewpoints. He was referring not just to different faiths, but also to the philosophy of Kolkata's flowing life.
We don't care for criticism. Even Rabindranath Tagore had to take it. Apparently, all his writings are convoluted, and he founded Shantiniketan with unclear intentions, etc., etc. But his Nobel Prize is still the first line of my poetry of pride. I may have been displaced from the status of India's capital city in 1911, but just 2 years later came a crown whose luster is never to be diminished. The Nobel Committee said Rabindranath Tagore is being awarded the prize because of his profoundly sensitive, fresh and beautiful verse. He was the first Indian to get the Nobel.
Oh, can you imagine? 6 Nobel laureates from one city and in 5 different fields at that. In 1902, Ronald Ross won the Nobel Prize for Medicine. In 1930, the Nobel for Physics went to C.V. Raman, who conducted his research in Kolkata for the Raman effect. In 1979, Mother Teresa got the Nobel Peace Prize, and in 1998, Amartya Sen for Economics. And in 2019, Abhijit Banerjee was awarded the Nobel for work done in the area of alleviating global poverty.
Not that getting Nobel was the last word. Scientist Jagadish Chandra Bose may not have won it, but he shines bright in my sky. His genius stretched from the discovery of life in plants to the invention of the radio. Then there was Prafulla Chandra Ray, the first non-European to be honored with the Chemical Landmark Award by the Royal Chemical Society of England.
অর্পিতা, ওখানে আমার ব্যাগটা আছে, পাশে রাখ, ব্যাগটা আছে সামনে।
Standard bearer of Bose-Einstein statistics.
চেয়ারের সামনে ব্যাগটা আছে।
The boson particle is named. There was Prashanta Chandra Moholanovich, father of the practice of statistics in India, architect of the Planning Commission, whose birthday is now observed as the National Statistics Day.
I hate to puncture your balloon, But this hallowed center of science is also a hotbed of unscientific fads, dear sir. In 1857, Kolkata saw the craze of the return of the dead. Some said all the people who have died this year will be back on the night of Kali Pujo. Others claimed, no, all those who have died in the past 10 years will be back on the 15th day of the month of Kartik. There was a commotion all over the city. Many people began to wait for their dead relatives. Songs were composed too. The dead people are back. I saw them floating in Ranaghat, scrawny neck and swollen belly, wobbling like a lump of jelly.
Guilty as charged. The 1979 rumors were no less sensational. The American satellite Skylab was going to collapse any day. People kept staring at the sky. Many of them actually walked around in helmets all day. Well, some pieces of Skylab did fall. But that was in Australia, in and around Perth, and some other places. Nowhere near Calcutta.
Oh, yeah, but the madness I remember best was when Ganesh began to drink one afternoon in 1995. Temple Ganeshas, calendar Ganeshas, hole-in-the-wall Ganeshas, no one was left out. Apparently, they were all drinking milk as though their lives depended on it. Everyone ran headlong to their nearest Ganeshas with milk. Being left out of this miracle would have meant falling short on their quota of good deeds.
That's what we call DeRozier's Phantom Punch. Do you know him? Before your time, a 17-year-old Anglo-Indian, a mere boy, a teacher of English at Hindu College, who told the students, argue, violate, use your reason, challenge tradition, and his students, well, if that is all the disciples, fanned out far and wide as young Bengal, trying to reform society. This too happened in Calcutta.
Please, I am perfectly aware of the story. And just like they tried to shake up the Brahmin orthodoxy to reform society, you had the young men and women in the 1970s who tried to annihilate the system with their violent Naxal revolution. But this time, the reaction to bombs and bullets was much sharper because politics had become much more complex. It was truly awful. The nights were filled with the explosions of bombs and the rumble of police jeeps. God. And when the sun rose, I could see the corpses of all those brilliant young men floating around the country. Gallons of fine hot blood was spilled on your body, Kolkata, and ideology and tradition were disguised in new masks.
As we say, Chotomot, Totomot. The Naxal revolution is a source of terror for some people and of romantic nostalgia for others. There are even sly smiles about the slogan, China's chairman is our chairman. But can you tell me why someone here would not be inspired by the Chinese leader? Kolkata is a center of global citizenship, isn't it?
There. I agree. Hindu college is such a powerful statement of that. Imagine saying one must learn the English language, saying one must understand Western culture and meld it with one's own back then. Nowhere else in India could a school have been set up with these objectives. I can proudly say that in 1817, the British and the Bengalis joined hands to start an institution without which there would have been no Bengal Renaissance.
True, Bengal Renaissance, it was beyond belief. I get exhausted just thinking about all that Tagore's alone did. They stuffed 10 geniuses into each member of the family. you have Dijendranath Tagore translating Meghdootam from Sanskrit to Bangla, writing books on philosophy in Bangla, improvising a Bangla version of shorthand, and even writing a book on making boxes. You have Shotendranath, who not only becomes the first Indian ICS officer, but also takes his wife abroad in that day and age. Here's Jyotirindranath, music composer, painter, playwright, director, actor. Then there's Devendranath, dictating an entire book on the Brahma faith in just 3 hours. Govindranath shows himself to be an artist extraordinaire, making cartoons as well as cubist paintings. And Govindranath's drawings and stories both turn out to be wonders of Bengali culture.
My heart is with the race. Who to start with? Upendra Kishore Roy Chaudhary played the violin, built the framework for children's literature in Bangla, published a magazine for children, and revolutionized half-tone printing with amazing inventions. His son, Shukumar Rai, stunned everyone with his comic verse and prose while talking of everything from Plato to Turgenev at nonsense club meetings. You know what I think? I suspect they used to stir the finest things from the east and the west into a glass and drink it every morning.
Well, we've always had this power to synthesize. In 1835, the Medical College was established to educate locals in the techniques of Western medicine. Then later, Dansa Udashanko joined hands with the Russian ballerina Anna Pavlova to create his famous ballet, Radha Krishna. In 1955, Shukumar Rai's son Shotrajit Rai single-handedly ushered in a new wave to Indian cinema with his spotted Pachami. He was very clear that he could never have created his own drama of filmmaking without having watched Hollywood movies. And yet, foreigners discovered a pure Indianness in his cinema. This ability to acquire, assimilate, and absorb runs in my veins, you know.
Oh yes, Ray electrified both the East and the West equally. No wonder he got an Oscar for Lifetime Achievement in 1992. He had to accept it in his hospital bed.
But what you may not know is that earlier, the same year, Subrata Mitra received the Eastman Kodak Lifetime Achievement Award for Excellence in Cinematography. Who was Subrata Mitra, you may ask? Well, he was the cameraman of Ray's earlier films. It's most unfair that he never got the fame he deserved as one of the world's best cinematographers.
Excuse me, but can you seriously please explain your obsession with unsung heroes? I can never decide whether you're being generous or being overly critical all the time. Every time the world thinks someone from your city is worthy of the finest honor, you Kolkatans will produce someone else at once. Oh, Mr. So-and-so was just as brilliant but never got his due.
But then why shouldn't we? The people of Kolkata know how to celebrate winners. We also know how to admire the ones who were left behind. We don't ignore the ones who didn't win the prize, who died without fame. Because we know how to measure an artist's or a thinker's worth. Not by how much gold they have gathered, but by how much gold they have scattered. And so, Jivananand Dash is as immortal as Rabindranath Tagore. Ritik Ghatak will live on as long as Shotrajit Rai does. Bahadur Sarkar, as long as Shambhu Mitra. Comrade Kumar Mojumdar, as long as Shuni Gangotay. We revere Pankaj Rai, but we honor Shute Banerjee too. We put Hemant Mukhopadhyay and Nanda Dey and Shobha Mukherjee on a pedestal. We bow our heads to Shuchita Mitra and Konika Bandyopadhyay too. But we won't leave Nirmala Misra and Pratima Bandyopadhyay out either. And we lose ourselves in Nikhil Banerjee's cigar. This isn't a fad. It's just that we have a deeper inside. You get me?